You know, Kasekgoa, there's a saying that says, hard work will always beat talent when talent doesn't work hard. There's a thing we do when you are talented in a thing and you are gifted in a thing, that you start believing that because of that gift, it's your God-given right for you to attain certain things. And we tend to not give credit to the hard work that is done by other people who may not have the talent that you have. This past weekend, we saw Orlando Pirates complete an incredible comeback, an unlikely comeback, a comeback that we haven't seen on the African continent, to make it 3-3 versus St. Eloi Lupopo in regulation time and be unlucky to lose out in the penalties. Much of the storylines were talking about how, number one, obviously Pirates was unlucky not to go through, but then number two, that the DR Congo guys were so unsportsmanlike in their conduct. They were doing everything in their power to destabilize the match, and that is such a bad thing. We were speaking as though it was deserved through that football for Pirates to go through. Maybe it was. But we failed to give credit to that Lupopo team that scored 3 goals versus Pirates. However you want to cut it. That team is nowhere near Orlando Pirates. And it brought me to a very interesting place because I've heard that term unlucky before. I've heard it when Pirates loses in penalties to St. Eloi Lupopo. I heard it last season when Sundowns gets knocked out by Pyramids FC with Kekana being unlucky to give the ball to Fiston Mayela. I've heard it the game before where Pirates was unlucky to lose to Pyramids because Pyramids needed a set piece where, there was just unfortunate positioning that gave that game away. I've seen it when Wydad Casablanca beats Mamelodi Sundowns through Mvala on goal, where again we say Sundowns was unlucky. And each of these positions, I understand, on face value, all of these guys are unlucky. But when you put it all together, you start to string together a pattern where maybe it's not unlucky. Maybe it's the unwillingness of our teams to do certain things in order to get over the line. Now, I don't want this conversation to be about right or wrong. That's not what I'm saying here. But we've seen at stages where we've been so stubborn with our football, so stubborn with our ideals, so stubborn with our understanding and belief that our football is the top, that when push comes to shove and you need to do something, we tend to not do it. In fact, I'll even go even further. The successes we have achieved in the country recently have been successes that have come when we've done things that we don't want to do. Miguel Cardoso makes a final with Mamelodi Sundowns of the Champions League. Something that has not been done since 2016, but yet we still have fans who are fighting and saying that that is not the Sundowns that we know and love. There's people who are talking about the Sundowns that came before him being better, even though the statistics say otherwise. Even though what has been achieved says otherwise. We have a Hugo Bruce that won a bronze medal at the AFCON. And he's also a coach that to this day is still being questioned because his football doesn't feel like our football. I remember watching the Wydad game, and the big criticism was that, Mara, coach, simnandi siyazi, Mara valumnya, kia. Pirates, kunzima ntwana, you need to score the 4 goals. They could have scored 6. But in Logunya rounder, Aniko direct. But again, we have this idea that our football is just inherently better. And that we look down upon the footballs of the other people that have made them successful. Because the truth of the matter is that St. Eloi Lupopo had no business playing with Pirates and being 3-0 up. St. Eloi Lupopo technically, footballically, administratively, you heard our coach speaking about the things they've learned from our clubs, had no business being so close. But they needed to find something to give them an edge so that they can get past this monster. And you cannot think that a team owes you a game where they play to your strengths for you to win so you can go home with something. And this brings me to the conversation about the fairness and unfairness of African football. Now, I am one person who's spoken about this before, where I've said sometimes it feels as though African football can hold us back to a degree. It feels as though the principles, the things you have to adopt in order to dominate African football doesn't translate at an international level. I've said that, some of the things that we're learning and teaching our teams in the African continent, in the African game, when we get that side, it's the reason why our best Egyptian teams have not done well. Those teams that used to dominate. It's the reason why we go to a Club World Cup and all of our teams get knocked out in the starting rounds. Because we've so adopted this grime and gritty and mind game football that it doesn't translate to the international level. But this is where you have to be real. The reality is it's not going anywhere. The reality is this is what it means. The reality is that it's war. I had somebody come onto my show, my live show from the DRC and say, guys, this is war for us. It's not a nice petty tournament, it's war. You could change people's lives in the group stages. Some of the teams don't have a hope when they play against the bigger teams, Go Africa, so you have to do what needs to be done to get through. And that is what the DRC teams in Eloi Lupopo did to Orlando Pirates. And I will stand on the sword and say that you need to do one of three things. Number one, you better make damn sure that your football is at the level that it can win every single time. So if you are going to be stubborn about the football that you play, you cannot allow for moral victories. Oh, Pirates were so close. They could have done it. Oh, the boys played well, we're just unlucky. Oh, Sundowns plays the best football on the continent. They're just unlucky to have to go and play ball Ahly. Oh, Zbanbani got to a final. Look at how they tripped up Kadi last minute. Oh. You have to be honest and say, yeah, you guys lost out. And that beautiful, great football, your beautiful, great players didn't make it through. Your beautiful, great football with your beautiful, great players did not win the Champions League when it was in front of them. The beautiful, great football with the beautiful, great players and coaches was not good enough when tested against other footballs. And you cannot sit down and say that you're inherently better if whatever they're doing is winning them football matches all the time. You cannot sit on a high horse and criticize Al Ahly for consistently coming to South Africa. I don't think Al Ahly, if I'm not mistaken, has a win in South Africa. Consistently coming to South Africa when called and understanding that we need to put aside our ego, we need to put aside our pride, and we need to play an ugly game where we waste time, come back with a 0-0 or a 1-0 loss at the very least, and we finish it Cairo. When a Lupopo says we need to use every trick in the book to get the 3-0, whether you're complaining about the ref or not, because we know that when we go to South Africa, there's a very big chance that this Pirates team can score 5, 6, 7. Coach Wadu before that game was speaking about that. So you have to sharpen your football to the point where it can stand against the world and win. Or else you are just lying to yourself about how beautiful your football is, because a semi-finalist of the CAF Champions League last year has not qualified. A team that we've said, we've consistently spoken about how they're the greatest team, has not qualified. As beautiful as their football was, as great as the result was in terms of regulation coming back and scoring the 3 goals. So that's option number 1. Option number 2 is you go out and you become like them. But if you can't beat them, you join them. You become what you hate the most. You become what is successful on the tournament, on the continent. Do you think Ahly belabors itself over beautiful football? You think that they will take you guys did well, or they will look at their trophies and say, we've got 15 Champions Leagues. Abo yes, Tunis. Guys that will come here and completely frustrate you. Part of the problem is the ego. The first leg was an ego leg for Pirates. We've seen it at Sundowns too. But the first leg was an ego leg where you are determined to continue playing your football, even though logically you need to go at some point, guys. Listen to the coaches when they speak. Listen to the continental coaches. They have the awareness to say, when we're going away, our job, if we win, it's nice, but our job is to limit damage and make sure that you come back. St. Eloi scores 1-0. Even though you are the better team, you put aside your ego, you pack that defense, you go into low block, you survive the game, you come home because you know you can win 3-1 for Pirates. Go, Scotty. You are playing versus Wydad Casablanca. You are leading 2-1. You don't shut the back door and say, you know what? We can't let anybody in now. It's great. It's cool we've been playing, but we can't do the back and forth. Now it's time for us to go into our two banks of 4 and sit back and absorb. Just absorb. And see out this game. Which is a lesson that I think Sundowns learned later on. But I think the more palatable version, the one we could probably stomach better as South Africans, is option number 3. And learn. The biggest example of what I'm going to speak about right now is the red card that Umoremi got. That passage when he got that red card, how we reacted and how other teams from Africa would react without necessarily getting dirty. You score the goal. Nemtanjela has the ball, he's running back. Mukoko mhluthi ball. Our reaction is to go Sialwa. Nemtanjela stops, he looks at the man, he stares him down, he's waiting for provocation, more provocation so he can react, retaliate. The guys from Africa and the guys from the other African countries, they take that as an opportunity to look at the ref and say, Mara ref, now, look at what he did now. That's number 1, ref, number 1. We're going to make sure that the ref knows, so Pegu linesman, did you see that? But anyway, he stands there, he gets headbutt. The guy puts his head on him. Our reaction is to swing. Nemtanjela swings at Mukoko, swings at him. Other African countries, a second time you've touched me. If I don't fall down in that moment and make sure that you're getting a red card, I might as well look at the ref again and say, Mara ref, look, he headbutt me. That's a sending off offense. But here's the crazier one. That happens. Nemtanjela misses. Moremi comes running in. and Moremi pushes the guy. Now for me, this is where I'm like, Mara guys. Because it's on 2 counts. Number 1, you have now retaliated. Now both of you are on the line. Did you see how Mukoko reacted? The moment hands were put on him, he fell down and acted in order to get the ref to look at. The ref then doesn't care about the 2 things that have happened before, whether he should have or should have not. Now I've directed the information to the ref that this guy has pushed me, I've fallen down, red card. But this is the part that I don't get. Even if you want to fight, Moremi, you're on a yellow card, chief. We're already on a yellow. Why are you engaging this person? We spoke about this Nombogazi. If they're being unfair and doing all of those things to you, you can't be the one that goes and tackles this person or enacts retribution on the person, because you are in a riskier place. So Moremi goes and pushes from a place where, fine, he's fighting back for the unfairness. But surely somebody else should have been the one to enforce that. Say, Mantwana Naile out. Push. I'm going to go back into time and maybe I'll lose some of the 2000s here, but you don't ask Tiko Bukwane to go and kapa the star player. You bring in Andrew Rabuta specifically for that. Shamuntam keep a game in but red card. You can't sacrifice an important player or a player that's already in trouble. These are the smarts, the street smarts that I'm talking about. This is Sundowns attacking, and I give credit to Sundowns for this. This is Sundowns attacking, and the moment you come back, and they stop the whole attack. Debza. Sundowns leaves with 22, 24 fouls from games at times. But we can't let that momentum build. It's Abu Chavin, Abu Iniesta, all the way through to now your Barcelona's, Real Madrid's looking at the ref and saying, that's number 3, ref. That's number 3. You've given him a warning. Where are the cards now? You have to be smarter, and cooler heads have to prevail. Because the fact of the matter is that now you're dealing with the reality of African football. You can cry, you can do whatever, but the same things that you guys are saying now are the things Abomachens were saying in 95. At some point you learn. And that's why I say there's 3. You don't have to completely sell out. But if you're not going to do the work to make sure that it doesn't matter what the ref says, it's Bashaye 5. Then you have to approach games smarter. There's also a naivety that we move with as South Africans when looking at the African game. And I learned so much from that caller, Ilunga, who came onto my show. He said a couple of things. Number 1, he said, this is war, guys. This is war. Some teams have no chance. They know they have no chance versus Pirates. So you have to do something to them, number 1. Even if it's just to get into their heads, even if it's just to get them off their rocker, even if it's just to get them to respond, react to what you're doing, you do it. Number 2, he said something interesting. He said, no, that team, I win a penalty veil. So even if we thought to ourselves, I remember thinking, oh, penalties is done. My naivety didn't tell me that these guys, this is the perfect scenario for them, because this is what they do. Intimidating penalties, all of that stuff will not be anything new to them, because that's how they win. I didn't know that. Maybe Pirates reacts a bit differently if they knew. They probably did know. Maybe they thought they were still superior. But what I'm trying to get to here, and the point of the conversation today, is that it cannot be enough to just be good. It cannot be enough just to play mouth-watering, easy on the eye football. Like, we like those terms. You now have to look at your football and say, what is missing in order to make us super champions across the board? Unfortunately, Pirates had to fall out right now, but in the examples I've given you, it's been that our South African teams have not been able to get over the line. Abo Stellies last season, Abo Marumo Gallants last season, Chiefs in a Champions League final loses 3-0. Siyashota. And at this point, we cannot keep giving excuses and outs for our teams. Now we have to critically analyze our football and say, what is it that we lack? I also want to speak about this intimidation factor and all of those things. You cannot complain about Mukoko going off in a game and doing all of these weird things to try to get into your head. But Nani, you do things that could be seen as psychological warfare. I don't want to speak about the effectiveness of eggs or things. But it's long being used, that thing, there's a guy, we see him. It gets in your head. There's a guy who walks in before games and he does things on the pitch to the point where sonke siyamazi, to the point where he's doing this 9-9. Because even if those things don't work, as a player, as a team that's coming in, I look at it and I go, yeah, yo way. They've shifted my mind. Similar to what Mukoko is trying to do to you, they've shifted your mind. We that complained about this is running. They've shifted, you've done something. It's the lasers up north. They've done something. So you cannot on the one hand also do things that are not on the pitch, that are not football based. You can't do those things, then want to hold other people accountable for doing their thing. When people are walking from other change rooms across the stadium. There were people who used to speak about vuvuzelas and say the noise, the sheer noise that's happening in the stadium is so distracting. It was an advantage. So you can't hold somebody else accountable. And this is not to invalidate some of the things that are happening. I'm not saying that it's 100% fair. I'm not saying that the refs are always right. I'm not saying that there aren't things that should not have been done. What I'm saying is it cannot be your cry. Because while you are crying, Ahly is winning their 15th star. While you are crying, Wydad is winning their 4th or 5th. While you are crying, ES Tunis is winning their stuff. While you are crying, since 95 to 2016, from 2016 onwards, while you are crying, guys are winning. They're dealing with the reality of the situation and going, okay, we need to go win. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying that it's conducive for African football. But we have a tendency, again, to focus and blame external things, things that we cannot control. My one big chat has always been, there's things you can control and things you cannot control. Wanting to change officiating, what across the continent is not gonna work. You need to go win. It's going to take a while, even if there is an inclination for that, it's going to take a while. But you are the crybabies of the toilet. You're the crybabies of the continent right now. We are. Because everybody else is going about their stuff. Abu Ahly are firing coaches, yes. But it's an internal battle. Fine, they may put in complaints and stuff for sure. But it's an internal battle to be the best. And we keep shifting things out while seeing no Martina inside to say, oh, look at how beautiful it is. Deserve, should be, is supposed to. But loku, na lawyer, na lona, Mukoko, the ref, papa, VAR, in, Hashem. You're not the only people who are playing without VAR. Others are getting their job done. The Sundowns got their job done. Why should we make a noise? Even on the VAR comment, if I can just jump in. Guys, the point of the preliminary rounds is to allow countries that might never be able to get in to get in. So you have to create the lowest bar possible, because a lot of these countries don't have the infrastructure. They don't have the monies to go and rent and do things and do whatever. So in order to make sure that you can play at Dolphins and Dolphins can go and play Pirates, you can't ask for Dolphins to take money they don't have to go and rent stadiums or do things in places where now you have to bring in the van, do all of those things, and it's a costly exercise. That is for the group stages when CAF is already funding them. When CAF is giving them a little bit of money, when there's a requirement now. But it's to make sure that it's the easiest way for some Madagascan team that may not ever get a chance at Champions League to play against double Pirates, to play against double Sundowns, to go through. I still believe in an expanded Champions League, but that's a conversation for a different day. Mara, you can't be putting all of these requirements on them. And again, you can't be complaining every single time when you are outmatched, when you make tactical mistakes. That game was lost in the first leg. And even in the second leg, it was 3-3. Well done to Pirates. But you have to finish the job. It was 2-1, Sundowns. Well done to Sundowns. But you have to finish the job. You've held Pyramids for a while. Well done to Sundowns. But you have to finish the job. Participation trophies shouldn't exist. And our teams are right there. But there's a complacency we have in South African football. It's a pattern that stretches across South African football, even in player development, even everywhere. We are unwilling to add on the things that will make them world beaters. Labo Vini Laba that we watch good for Ballon d'Ors. They understand that sometimes, I have to lie down a little bit longer and point at the ref. Labo Lamine Yamal, Labo Pedri and Espatandayo, they understand that sometimes you have to make a lot of noise about fouls and things so that you can put a player under pressure and put a ref under pressure to do something to that player. You can't play quiet. Sometimes you have to grab a jersey and be unfair on a counter-attack to stop the other guys from doing something sometimes. Abo Busquets Laba used to win the ball back and fall in order to stop your momentum. This is not new. This is not honorable. It's not a question about those things because the teams we love do these things. Might be overdone in Africa, you could make the argument, but that is just the reality of the situation. And I'm not saying this to say that Pirates must change or Pirates was bad. I'm saying it to say that we have another good, great South African team on paper that has failed to get past another hurdle. And maybe you need to have a serious conversation about what it takes to get over that hurdle. A serious conversation about what it is about our football that cannot get us over that hurdle. Or that our football has not gotten us close to those hurdles sometimes. Labantes Kalangabo, they're doing it. Labantes Patandayo, they couldn't. So I think it's time we be honest. We don't have to be mean. We don't have to be crazy, but it's constructive criticisms. I'm not going to say Pirates is a bad team. I'm going to say no. Sometimes what you have to learn is just a little bit of the dark arts. Let's not even talk about the dark arts, the grey arts. But kapile, how do you make sure that the ref knows? But kapile, how do you respond in the moment? They've brought a madman onto the pitch who's doing crazy things to try to get under your skin. How do you look at that person and say no? If you're going to get retribution, you feel like you need to get retribution in a game. How do you go about getting retribution in a way that doesn't get you into trouble? You can look at not having VAR. You can look at having or not having VAR as a weakness, or you can look at it as a strength. All of our greatest teams have the stories of Konomuntu ubega loka angihlaba man. Sibekelena, I'm running back, uyanginyathela kancane. I couldn't walk in the second half because my toe. Yeah. You could ask them. Ask the legends. But luckily, those guys. This is not new. We're just being fake honorable because we're giving it an excuse. But guys, thank you so much for joining me. Tell me what you think in the comments. Tell me about this conversation, where you fall on this. And let's take it from there. I'll see you guys on the next one.